We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Okay, fire evacuation announcement. There are 2 exits. One is behind the audience out there and go right out the door, or you can go to my left and take the stairway down the left and get as far away from the building as you can. Thank you. Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski.
Here.
Christian D'Antonio.
Here.
Linda Graves here. John Petronella is absent. Terrence Lynch.
Here.
Francis Alimo is absent. Joe Muley.
Here.
Walter Crizel.
Here.
Robert Anderson.
Here.
And Laura Anderson is absent.
Okay, I'm going to appoint Walter Crizel and Rob Anderson as regular members for this meeting tonight. Okay, can we have approval of minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions or issues with the minutes? Okay.
I did have, there was
Yes.
one typo. Hold on, where was it? It was towards the end. Sorry about that. Oh man, I lost it. I did have a minor correction. Number 15, Director of Planning Report, page 5, towards the bottom of page 5. Director Witten, Shared Assistant Planner Aragoni will be attending the Connecticut Association of Zoning Enforcement Officers. It should be training. It says trailing
Okay.
next week.
Okay, you got it.
So minor correction.
Okay, so all in favor with the correction?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to move item number 12, new business 12A, to right after item number 10.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, okay. All right, town attorney reports. I don't think we saw any. I didn't see any in the packet.
No.
Zoning enforcement officers report. I didn't see any of those out yet either.
Nope, nothing new.
Okay, good. Public participation. At this time, I'd like to invite anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the Planning and Zoning Commission about anything that's not on tonight's agenda. Would anyone like to speak? Would anyone like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to bond releases. I don't believe there are any bond releases.
No bond releases.
Okay, great. Continued public hearings, we have none. New public hearings, PH, you want to read the new public hearing? Oh, sorry,
It's,
my mistake. The new public hearing will not be held until 6/25/2026. And that is an application for text amendment to Section 620 use requirements to allow motor vehicle repair garages and body shops in the I-1 zone under specific conditions. Amazon.com Services, LLC, owner applicant, map 94, lot 65, I-1 zone, and that will be heard on June 25th, 2026. Okay, next item is new business.
Okay, SPR 1966, 809 Enfield Street, application for modification of PH 3084 for 2 temporary storage containers, GSWSJ LLC, applicant owner, map 29, lot 72, BG zone.
Okay, welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Could you please state your name and addresses for the record?
Gary Rome Kia, across the street.
Okay, close enough.
Steve Liptak, Gary Rome Kia,
Okay,
across the street.
okay. And sir?
For Dana Steele, professional engineer with J.R. Russo and Associates. I prepared the plan that was submitted for this application. Thank you.
Okay, well, go ahead.
So when We were last before you for this property. We had purchased the residential piece on this inside corner of the piece that was already zoned business general. And the house was removed and the parking was expanded, and that work is now done. In the process of submitting our as-built to complete that and be done, our as-built showed two storage containers in the back of the property. We did not show these on our original survey. That was an omission on our surveyor's part. At the time, I think they were up close to the building, and I think they thought that they were temporary and weren't going to be remaining, and so there was some confusion about that, and so we didn't show them. But the applicant's intention, he's been using them for part storage, so he's got fenders and bumpers and things like that in these spaces. He ended up moving them to the back of the property here, and in order to be able to get in and use them, he's even run power to them so that there's a light inside and to be able to access them. So they're sort of, they're temporary in nature, but they're sort of kind of fixed in this location. He'd like to be able to leave them here, and I know staff has raised some issues about that, about their location, but we're asking if these trailers, which are have been at the site, Gary, for what, 15 years?
15 years, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been there a while, and Gary's can talk more about this, but they're looking into options to increase the size of their building and to create more storage space, but they need a little bit of time. So we're asking for an accommodation to be able to hopefully leave them where they are, but to be able to have these temporary storage containers. I've highlighted them on the plan here. I think what staff raised a couple of issues, one about their location within the rear yard, and also screening from the residential use next door, which is Delbert and Karen Campbell. So, Gary, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Well, thank you for seeing us tonight. I appreciate that. In our current location, we're out of room, and so about 15 years ago, we added these these trailers for storage. And as Dana indicated, when we expanded our parking, we moved them to the back over there. I didn't do anything without speaking to our neighbor and asked his permission to do that. And he was fine with that, especially because those trailers are adjacent to their very, very backyard, and the second trailer is adjacent to Frank's woods. So they're really, bless you. So they're really, not visible they're not an eyesore to anyone, and we're using them. But to fast forward a little bit, our hope is to build a brand new dealership across the street on the property that I just developed over there that I was before you not too long ago, and we've developed that property. So our intention is to build a new dealership and to eliminate those trailers, the need for those trailers, because we'll have enough room in the new building.
Okay. Anything else?
The property line that Gary was speaking of is right here. So from here to the north is the residential use, and then from here to the south is the vacant land owned by Friano.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Steve, do you have any comments on this?
So the proposal here is that this is to modify the original site plan that came before you all under PH 3084, as they had previously stated, by adding 2 temporary long-term storage containers in the rear of the property. This application comes as a result of a cease and desist order that was issued on February 27th of 2026 for non-approved storage containers. To correct the violation, it requires an approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Temporary storage containers may be allowed by a site plan review under section 3.30.14, storage containers. The storage container regulation does contradict itself within the section A.II and A.IIE. These two conflict where A.II states that the storage containers and trailers are only permitted within the I-1 and I-2 zones. Meanwhile, A.IIE states that they may be permitted within either the business or industrial districts. So that's where staff's thinking came into play of they can still get these approved with the site plan approval. And to just kind of go over some of the more particulars within the regulation. So for the purpose of this section, long-term storage shall be defined as anything more than 30 days. And they have stated in their application that this is a request for an approval for 2 years. And one of the comments I had brought up, which Dana brought up earlier, is that such containers shall be located in rear yards and shall comply with the standard rear and side yard building setbacks, as well as any applicable buffer requirements for the district. In addition, the coverage of areas of such containers in conjunction with the coverage area of permanent structures shall not exceed the overall building maximum coverage percentage of the zone which the property is located. This complies with coverage. However, where it contradicts, where it conflicts with the regulation is that they are currently located within that 20-foot rear yard setback. So according to the regulation, it has to be moved out of that rear yard setback. I took a look to see if that would cause any issues with parking. They would still have the minimum amount of parking spots required, which was 37, according to the town's parking regulations. And then the other point that I had pointed out to the applicants was that the storage containers and trailers used for storage shall be screened from any street line by buildings, fences, walls, landscape beams, or evergreen shrubs and trees. I had done a quick site visit. I just walked across the street and I took a look myself. The storage containers are screened from the street line by the stockade fence. However, as I walked past the stockade fence, I was able to still see the container from the sidewalk as if I was at 8 Park Ave, which is that residential building. Otherwise, there was no other comments from town staff when we were doing the review.
Okay. Do any commission members have any questions for the applicants? Yes, Linda.
How soon do you plan, and I'm not trying to force you into a definite date, okay, how soon do you think, because the economy is the way it is, that you would start construction of a new dealership?
Our hope is to have a meeting, an art meeting, in the not too distant future. We have a design in mind. We're the only, how many dealers are in our district? 16?
16.
We're the only dealership out of 16 in our district that has not built a new building. So we have some pressure from our manufacturer to do this sooner rather than later. So long answer to your question is as soon as possible. So I think that if all the moons are in alignment and we go through all our meetings here and so on, we could probably start in the spring, right?
27?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just springers.
Yeah, I mean, that's our hope.
Okay.
That's our hope. We've been there 19 years already, so,
Okay.
yeah.
And what would the hardship be if you were denied? I'm not saying, I can't speak for anybody else, but what would be if you
it would be a severe-
You didn't have those trailers.
It would be a severe hardship because we wouldn't be able to operate our parts business. We wouldn't be able to store body parts. We don't have any room in the building. We store some of our parts upstairs in the building, and then we're chock full in the current parts area. So we wouldn't be able to. I think we'd have to rent somewhere off-site, somewhere in a warehouse or something, in order to do that. So it wouldn't be conducive to, And the reason we want to put up a new building is because our business is growing here in Enfield. And we've been busy over the past 19 years, and we've outgrown our space. Additionally, the building that's there now, we would come before the commission, and we would hope to be able to take down part of that building, so leave the service center because there's a big need for service, and take down the showroom area and make that into parking. And we've already talked about turning radiuses for trucks, emergency vehicles, et cetera.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry for the long answer.
No,
It's
no,
okay.
that was
Anyone
good.
else? Yes, Walter.
So what I'm hearing, this is a no-brainer, that we should just leave the things where they are, let them do what they got to do, let them get new plans in front of us, and let's progress, move forward. That's, I wouldn't, I something about the 20-foot setback, right? Let's just leave them where they are. If they're already fenced in, they're already blocked, just, they're temporary, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Steve.
Just kind of playing, or just out of curiosity. So, Dana, you had mentioned earlier that when you guys had originally done the survey, the shipping containers were closer to the building.
Right.
Would it be much of a hindrance to put those shipping containers back near the building? That way you wouldn't necessarily need to do the screening? And would that take up too many spaces? Would there be any conflict in moving them back?
I can answer that for you. If we moved them closer to the building, they would be more obvious to everyone because they wouldn't be blocked by the building. Before we moved them, because there was a house there before, and that property was developed and somewhat overgrown, so you couldn't really see the two trailers at that time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you did mention a gap in the screening when you were on the sidewalk and you said there was a gap.
Yes, that's correct.
You guys are going to fix that gap, screen it?
Well, we planted arborvitaes, and the arborvitaes actually...
Are the ones there?
Yeah, and the arborvitaes have to be replaced. They were guaranteed by the contractor. They had a tough winter, like we all did. So they have to be replaced, and he's going to be doing that. So we have arborvitaes all along there.
Okay.
They just
And
need to grow.
And there's also a stockade fence?
Yeah, a white security stockade fence. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Linda?
Through the chair to staff, how is this application different from the one that we just denied on King Street for temporary storage?
That
They wanted long-term storage, and we denied that, and they were in the I-1 zone. How is this different? Help me out. I need to understand.
That is a good question. Please hold while I pull up the application and kind of review that really quickly.
Thanks.
May I chime in on that a little bit?
Sure, go ahead.
So, a couple of differences I see from what I think you're is the other one, the guy didn't have a CO. As far as I know, he still doesn't. And he had no answer about how long he wanted to leave them there. And the place looked like a junkyard on top of that. And still does. I stopped there the other day.
But we're
But,
just looking at these containers.
Right.
And we denied his containers.
I think
so-
this case, it's a more orderly process, and they have answers to our questions and whatnot. And I think if we asked them to even move them a few feet from the line, they'd probably be willing to do that. And the other guy had no inkling of doing anything, so that's my take on it. Just
But I
my
still
2
need
cents.
staff to answer that question. But thank you.
While he's pulling that up, can
Go
I
ahead.
ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you mind pointing on the plans where they previously were located?
Can you help me with that? Kevin?
Sure. Steve, you can help with that, too.
Were they adjacent to the building, or were they kind of?
Let's see. So our building is here. Okay, so they were over here. They were right here.
Behind the dumpster?
Well, the dumpster wasn't there, right? The dumpster was there, yeah. So they were back here.
The back of the property behind the former residential property.
They were behind 6 Park Ave,
Yep.
and then they ran all the way back to here. Yep. Right. Yeah.
Okay,
Right behind where the dumpster is.
understood. Thanks for that.
And they'd be closer to Park.
Yeah, so that location wouldn't work now with the new layout, because it's right in the middle
Right
of
in
the
the middle.
circulation.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I wasn't sure if they were like up against the building.
No,
Was
I
there
mean,
consideration
If you
for?
put them here, right up
the
against the
building?
building, you'd lose quite a few parking spaces.
Yeah, no, so the dumpster is here and the 2 trailers were right here. I'm sorry. The 2 trailers were right here.
And the main concern with being closer to the building is parking spaces?
Yeah, because now this property is all developed here. We lose all the parking parking spaces, yes.
Was there any consideration for other locations? Or that's,
Well, we wanted to put them out of the way where no one would see them and they would kind of be hidden, so that's why we put them out in the back in the woods.
With the other property, 1495, I believe the main problem with that is the location was too far forward. They were supposed to be set back behind the
They
building,
were behind the building.
but they were too far forward for, the placement of them was in the wrong
The
place.
placement was wrong, as these are wrong. So now I need to know what the staff finds that this is something that we should consider, where the other one we had to deny. So that's, and I'm not against you, honest. I'm just trying to understand.
Do your due diligence.
So, yes, I have questions that I need answers to.
If I may?
Yep.
So just quickly reviewing some of the files from that previous application, which was at 1695 King Street. It seems like the staff comments at the time was that they were still missing a narrative, and the site plans were difficult to make out, which after reviewing them just now, they were pretty hard to read. It was pretty hard to identify exactly where they were. There was no indication of exactly how big and what the measurements were from the property lines. It looked like it was in the side yard, which did not satisfy the location requirements. And the building department also had a question of how big the container was and how far it was from the existing building. So there was a lot of uncertainty with the application.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the commission? Okay, just looking out into the public area, there are no people from the public here to make any comments, so
Not a public hearing either.
that's true, but that's right, you're right.
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Just also for the commission's awareness, I did include 2 conditions of approval within the conditions to be met prior to signing of plans. They are conditions number 7 and 8. Final plans shall include screening of storage containers from 8 Park Ave, as well as final plans shall remove the storage containers from the rear yard setback. So if you do decide to make a motion on this and you find that you want to remove those in particular, you will have to state that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one question. With the screening, it's showing the screening from 8 Park Avenue. And I'm wondering if you have any type of idea of how you might screen that from Park Avenue.
Well, we've added these arborvitaes on Park Avenue,
Yeah.
and then we've got the white security
Okay,
fence.
so it's a matter
It's
of,
already in place.
it's a matter of some growth to the arborvitaes.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yep.
Okay, can I just understand again about the conditions 7 and 8? Are we saying that we can remove those because it's already compliant? I believe 7 might be compliant.
Well,
I'm not sure about 8.
Well, the regulations don't state that you can waive those provisions. But I was just saying, if you, as the commission, felt okay with the application, I had those conditions written in here. So if you made a motion and approved it, those conditions are still there.
Okay, gotcha.
We're asking if you can remove those 2, 7 and 8, but if you can't, then we'll accept whatever you have to, whatever conditions you have to make. But we're asking those to be considered to be removed.
Okay. I think I would be more comfortable if they stayed. I'm not sure how everyone else feels, but
Well, I think that, sorry to interrupt, but what we're asking for is to be allowed to leave them where they are. temporarily until we put up our new building. And in order to do that, I think what staff is saying is that you can approve that, our request, but you need to remove the requirement for us to move it from the setback and remove the request for us to screen it, although it will be screened. Yeah, is that what you were saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I understand. Go ahead, Lynn.
I just want to, because sometimes what's the, and this is through church to staff, how far would they have to move those containers forward? Is it 10 feet, 3 feet, 20,000 feet?
So one of these storage containers is just about right on the property line, so that would need to move about 20 feet. And then the other storage container, when I was doing the review, its closest point was also about 3 feet, give or take, from the property line. So that would need to move roughly 15 or so feet.
Now, to the applicant, how would that affect your day-to-day business?
Well, that would inhibit our ability to service cars, because we need all the parking spaces that we can to service our customers' cars that come in, and then also the cars that stay overnight. And like I said earlier, my intention was to hide them and push them back as far as possible. That's why they're adjacent to the woods.
So you're asking us
If we could leave them where they are.
And this is another staff question, because we can't give variances, only ZBA can, is to give a variance for that to waive our setbacks and give a variance for that. Yes?
I'm just, to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly, you acknowledge that you can't give a variance because that is the ZBA's job.
Right.
You're asking, do you have the ability to waive those sections?
Yeah, our regulations are our regulations.
Correct.
And to say, oh yeah, go do whatever you like is and I'm not, please understand, this is not personal toward you at all. But to just say, go do it, as one of our commissioners says, just leave everything. No, we have regulations for a reason, and we have setbacks, and we have to follow our regulations. And I'm having some agita about just letting them sit where they are, because it sets a bad precedent for the next person that comes in, that these people are doing everything the right way, and then the next person comes in and just does what they want. And we have some applicants in the past that have done that and created huge issues for us. So I'm asking, is this something that they would have to go before ZBA to get a variance to allow this? I'm asking you, you're the expert here now.
No, and you are right to ask that question. So the regulations themselves, they do not give you all the opportunity to ask to give a waiver on this. And if the applicant wanted a variance, they may apply for one, but the variance would have to be something that's unique to the land. It can't be personal or financial in nature.
Right.
So therefore, if they were to seek a variance, that would be as the application sits right now, it appears to be an uphill battle. I personally currently struggle to see what the hardship would be with the land here.
Right.
So given the facts of what we have in front of us right now, they would still have to, just given the regulations, still have to move these storage containers.
Thank you.
I think one way to summarize it is that if they have to move the trailers, they're going to lose these 8 parking spaces because they'll have to move them into the spot where those spaces are. So they either leave the trailers where they are and don't lose 8 spaces, or move them and lose the 8 spaces, or move them from the site completely and store them off site, which involve more trips and traffic, just to have less convenience. So those don't seem like great options from the applicant standpoint. But that's really what we're talking about is a trade-off of loss of parking spaces in order to comply with the setback versus leaving them where they are, where those spaces can remain.
And I think what we're asking for is just the ability to leave these temporary containers there temporarily where they are until we're able to dispose of them when we build our new building.
I understand that, but I'm trying to see if there's another way that you could move those so that you would be within the setbacks. And I don't know if you turned them, you do your business every
Yeah.
day. I don't.
Right.
So I'm looking at your plan and saying, is there another way so that you would be within the setbacks?
They're really I understand the setback, but they're adjacent to the woods. There's nobody living there. The home that's adjacent to it is really in disrepair, as you probably know. There's boats in the backyard over there. There's all sorts of junk that I've asked them to move. I've even told them I would hire a dumpster for them if they want to bring it there, so we can do that. So this is, in a way, it's screening for us from that mess that we see that's over there. It's been like that for years. So there's, yeah. So, but
Okay,
if we could leave them where they are, we would really appreciate it. Yeah, it's a barrier. Yeah.
And how long have they been there? I mean, you said earlier, and
15 years.
yeah.
How long?
Not in that.
And not in that.
Oh, in that location, it's about 2 years. Yeah, yeah.
Joe had a comment.
Do you access these trailers from the ends? Right, they're like a regular.
The middle.
They're in the middle.
Yeah,
So they're on the side, the long side of.
We access
each
them from the
container?
ends. The ends are right next to each other. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say if they're accessed from the ends, if you pulled them out and turned them sideways next to each other, you only lose 2 parking spaces that way. Yeah, but if you're telling me the door's in the middle of the side of the trailer, that's.
Times 40 feet. Yeah.
They're too long to fit within the remaining, because the spaces here are sort of straddling that rear yard, so half the space is actually in the rear yard and the other half is not. So there is room to keep them in the same orientation and move them here, but like I said, it occupies where eight spaces.
That's for one trailer. It's 8 more for the others, or is it?
No, eight combined
okay.
for the total.
Anyone else?
If I may.
Yeah, Steve, go ahead.
Is there a possibility, because I was thinking something similar to what Commissioner Muley was saying, where instead of having them horizontal, have them vertical? And I'm just looking at the site plan here. You've got a middle row of parking behind the building, and instead of taking up potentially 8 spaces, could you use the 4 spaces closest to the right-hand side? So that way you're not losing as many spaces by moving the trailers. They're still compliant with the location, and it seems to be that location, correct. And you're also not losing the drive space.
Yeah, that's an issue for driving into the parking lot. Yeah.
This one here might be able to fit and take up just 2 spaces if you turn it that way on the end. The other one is too long it's a much longer container, so.
We also put them back there out of the way to be hidden, and it's good for snow removal. If we put them on the side over there, then it would impede Mr. Plow's snow removal over here. Yeah.
You have to plow around them then.
Yeah.
They're sort of out of the way, so from a logistics standpoint, it's kind of works well in that location.
Yes, Walter, go ahead.
So what if you lease 20 feet of land from Triano for $1 a month? And then that will push your setback 20 feet. No?
He gave me, I asked him permission to put them there as well. So, and he's not using the woods. He's not developing. I'm sorry. I did ask his permission before I
Just a thought.
put those there, and he's not using that property. He's not developing that property. So,
Just a thought.
yeah.
And Gary, you haven't received any concerns or complaints from this property owner?
No, I asked permission before I moved it there. Yeah. Yep. In fact, he came and spoke on our behalf at the
At the last.
At the last meeting,
public
yeah,
hearing.
yeah.
Yeah, Christian.
Yeah,
Chris.
if I kind of do wish that our regulations maybe allowed for, hey, if your neighbor is cooperative, I think it's important for neighbors to be cooperative. But unfortunately, that's not part of our regulations. This isn't even a special permit, so they wouldn't even have the opportunity to speak. But I appreciate you sharing that. But yeah, it clearly doesn't meet our regulations. We could pretend it's screened sufficiently, but it's not screened technically from the property line, and it definitely doesn't meet the setback. I mean, I don't know how you get around with that setback. I mean, I get your point, kind of ask for forgiveness than permission. I mean, because maybe we could have talked about it if this was on the original plans, but I'm struggling with being consistent with our regulations. I don't know how we get around those two things. I mean, we could approve it with those two conditions, but they would have to work with. I mean, I'd be fine approving it with the conditions. They'd have to work with staff to figure out a new location. I mean, it's not our job. I think it's great that we're working with them, giving them ideas, but it's not our job to do their planning. They bring us the plan, and we have to work with what their plan is. I mean, they would apparently still meet the parking minimums if they lost parking spaces. It may impede their business slightly, but again, is that a hardship? And hardships are outside of our control. Well, I mean, and you guys did expand your parking lot significantly. If you lost 8 spaces, you had the same containers on the property for a while,
We did,
right?
yes.
And then you added, what is that, like 20?
We added a quarter of an acre,
Yeah.
like 0.23 acres when we bought 6 Park Avenue and knocked that down. So
Right.
we added the space because we were out of room and we were on top of each other and we didn't want to have damage. We have lots of damage with snow removal and with cars next to each other, and that's, yeah. So
I understand, and I understand you wouldn't want to lose 8 spaces if you could avoid it, but it just doesn't meet the setback, and technically not screened from the residential property next door. Not fully, at least. But I mean, so again, we could argue that, but what do you argue the setback? The current location just doesn't fit the setback.
Yeah.
With
Go ahead.
what Walter said, I think that's a brilliant idea. Would it be possible to table this to next meeting, and maybe you could contact Trianos and see if you can work out something with them?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Being able to table it gives the applicant time to figure out maybe some kind of backup plan, maybe some sort of site plan that will meet the regulations. So I think that's a good idea.
Good with that.
Okay, well, you understand the issue. The issue is that those items have to be met per our regulations, and we have no way to waive that at this point.
So is there a way, if you offer me allowed me to leave the storage containers there temporarily, like you did for, or what the commission did for Artioli for a short period of time? That's what I'm looking to do, is just have them there for a short period of time while we're constructing our new facility. So if they're temporary, can they just stay where they are temporarily?
Mr. Chair, to be fair, I mean, our regulations are specifically for temporary. I mean, they're not
That's true.
intended to be
Yeah,
permanent.
that's true.
I mean, it's long term, but it's not permanent. But I mean, I get the play. Understandable.
The only thing I can think of is that, what does final plans mean? How long does it take to get the final plan complete?
To get the final plans, it's kind of dependent on how quickly applicants respond to an approval, because typically the post-approval process is they get approved at a meeting, we send them the notice of decision and next steps letter, which goes over all the materials that they have to do for wrapping up the record for our department before, if they need to get a building permit or whatever the next step will be. And so getting those final plans is kind of dependent on how quickly the applicant gets those final plans to us. So it could be the next week, it could be a couple months. It's dependent on how quickly the applicant follows up on those action items.
Mr. Chairman, were you asking about these final plans or the ones across the street? Which one?
Were you asking?
I'm asking about these final
These,
plans.
Oh,
okay, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because that's what's in our
Yep.
motion
Okay.
here. And that's one of the, two of the conditions are there.
Wanted to be sure.
Okay, that's what I was asking about. How long are they going to be there?
We're asking for 2 years.
We're asking for 2 years. We're hoping for sooner. You know, we really are out of room. That's why we want to put up our new building. Yeah.
I don't know, I don't see a way around it, to tell you the truth.
It's,
I mean, the way around it is for them to move them
Yep,
and show that they're
just
appropriately
evaluating
screened. But it just, as it is now, yeah, I agree. I don't see a way around that.
yeah, it's pretty nebulous. Yeah. Okay, any other comments? I think we should go ahead with the motion.
Are you going to table this at the next meeting, or?
that will be up to the applicant if he wants
Do you
to.
want them to make a motion as staff has suggested it, where the containers have to move and screening has to be installed?
No.
Or do you want to table this and come back to the next?
Well, as I understand what you're saying, the solution to this would be for me to lease a piece of property from Triano, so that way they could stay where they are, and it would be a 20-foot or so setback from that property line, right? And then,
Well, that's a suggestion.
well, I think that's a reasonable suggestion because,
We'd have to discuss it with staff some more, I think, to see whether that's a viable option.
yeah.
I don't want to, on the spot here, just say, yeah, that'll work. I think we need to look at it carefully.
Okay, why don't we,
You okay
we
with
have-
tabling it?
okay?
Well,
with
For
June?
2 weeks, and then you can.
I'd be okay if you tabled it for 2 years. and then we'd be all set,
understand.
right? I mean, really, because well, I'm just saying because our intention is to move them and
We
to
understand
dispose
it.
of them. It's
But
it was really
I'm
just
just the suggestion. You had a suggestion, and we have our regulations that
I
we have to
understand.
follow.
I understand. Yeah.
So maybe if you were trying to give you 2 weeks to explore that suggestion.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
and we can come back. in
I
2
can make a phone
weeks.
call when I'm driving home. Yeah, we could.
So-
I'll get right on it. Sure.
Okay, so
And if I can add, maybe also be prepared and come with your least bad alternative. That meets our
Sounds good.
Sure.
regulations.
That's reasonable. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, can I have a motion to table SPR 1966?
I make a motion to table SPR 1966, 809 Enfield Street, and to our next meeting, which would be June 10th, I believe, I think. 11?
June 11th?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, jokes.
Okay, Joe seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio,
Or
Linda DeGrasse 4, Joe Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Walter Crizel,
4.
and Rob Anderson.
4.
Okay, so
Okay,
it's,
unanimous.
we're giving you 2 weeks.
Okay,
All right, great.
see you
Thank
soon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so next item on the agenda would be the number 11, old business, discussion of possible text amendments. Item 1, section 4.80, special provisions for the Lake Overlay District.
Hello. So, staff has gone back and we've reviewed and we've made some modifications to the Lakefront Overlay District after our last meeting. I understand that there was a comment about potentially removing the F from the Lakefront District, but frankly, these are all properties that are on the lakefront. So we feel it's more appropriate to keep the F in front there. And then in reviewing the rest of the regulations that we made for modifications, Section D says, the commission shall use the criteria required for the review of and we changed that to a site plan per our discussion, to consider such applications. This commission may reduce the front, rear, or side yard by no more than what is consistent with the average front, rear, or side yards existing for the block face on which property is located as of July 1st of 2017. We do not have block face defined within our regulations, so A, we will need to define block face, and B, we wanted to talk with you all and see, do you feel we should keep the block face as a potential requirement of this regulation?
You mind?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just clarify? So, if I'm understanding what it's saying, is it's basically using the existing properties around it kind of as a basis for more flexibility. Is that kind of what it's getting at?
Kind of.
So it's like, okay, if the two houses on either side, or even just one, doesn't exactly meet the setbacks, but a proposal is to be consistent with that, this would allow for some flexibility for aesthetic consistentness.
Correct. So
consistency.
I was doing a little bit of digging into definitions of what other communities have for what a block face is. And generally speaking, it's referring to homes that are on the same side of a road within a certain parameter, whether the parameters are intersections, whether the parameters are a street and a waterway. We would, of course, still have to come up with that definition ourselves. But you are correct in the understanding that including this block face provision would include some flexibility for the sake of keeping things consistent in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally in favor of that for neighborhood cohesion. I'm not even necessarily limited to the lakefront, but obviously this is what we're talking about here. So I'm generally supportive of that. The specific timing of it, backdating it to July 1st, 2017, that feels like that could be a challenge as opposed to just the current state.
Well, the July 1st, 2017.
Did that come up in your conversations? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So the July 1st, 2017 provision is what currently exists in the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could potentially play around with either changing the date, either removing the date entirely, because I understand what you're saying, where it feels kind of arbitrary having that date there. And I'm not sure what the reasoning for including that date was in the past.
Oh, I can tell you, it was a revision to this wording.
Oh, okay.
So that's why that date is there. And for whatever reason, it doesn't say revised. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents. I think I would remove the date, I would just treat it as the current state.
You just get rid of as of
As
the
of,
date and end it right after located.
that's my thought. Yeah, I don't see how that's really
I
doing
tend to
too much
agree.
good.
Yeah.
I think the more and more time goes on, that'll just get more and more confusing, because then you'd have to pull up site plans from exactly this date. You'd have to pull up satellite imagery from exactly this date.
They would have to go back and, actually, it wasn't supposed to be a site plan, it was just as revised,
That's
of
not what-
July 1st, 2017.
Then maybe they wrote it wrong then.
Yeah, so I think that's just, but,
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's my 2 cents. I'll
up
step
the
back.
word revised,
Yeah, it's almost as if you would have some problem grandfathering things in,
yeah.
going back and doing all that stuff, which is going to be quite lengthy, I would think.
Yeah.
I think just, get
Cause a lot of
get rid of
confusion.
that ending there and just clean it right up.
Yep.
Should be no dates in anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you all as the commission. We can, even if we wanted to have an as amended as of whatever the date will be, we could include that. But if you would prefer to just remove any dates, even the as amended, we can totally do that.
I would remove it personally.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And kind of technical question. Although we don't, do we have this is actually just an informal discussion, right? So we don't even
Yes.
have an application.
Correct. This is an informal
So
discussion.
we would have to, again, kind of technical, if we would have to add a definition to the glossary, would that have to be two applications? Would we have to do two applications, one to update the glossary to add the definition and one to update this section?
So with a text amendment, I believe we could do it all within the same application. It could be a text amendment to definitions, definition number, whatever number it would be, and then a text amendment to section
Good.
4.80 A through.
If we ever get to that point,
Hey,
where we
we're,
can,
let's get to that
can
point.
move
start getting
Yeah.
our
We can move
public
forward.
hearings moving
Yeah,
on
move forward.
this.
No,
I would love it.
moving forward.
But to answer Commissioner D'Antonia's question, that could potentially be
good.
one application.
And as far as the lakefront, as long as we're consistent, so I like that we added lakefront to the other sections where it's referred to. So I'm in support of that. As long as we're consistent throughout the regulations, and I do recall, I think we just may need to define it in the section before this. I know there's somewhere
The
where
lakefront district itself.
it has that. I'll try to pull it up. I know there's a little box that has like the 4 different acronyms.
Okay. And to just kind of go back and review for a second, because I know we spent a little bit of time on the date. I just, again, wanted to get a feel for the commission. How did we feel about keeping that block face provision? Are we still generally in favor of that? Did we have mixed feelings? Remove it?
Keep it. I say keep it.
Leave it. We got it.
Keep it, but define it.
Right, because even though we only are using it, block face may be in other areas, so I think like for a subdivision or something, that would be beneficial to have. Off the top of my head, I don't know where else it was
Right.
in our regulations, but to keep block face as consistent.
Yeah, and I think we ought to define it
Consistency.
as well.
Right.
I think we ought to define it, what block, because I was confused as to what block face was.
Yeah.
Like your street, when you look
Yeah, I
down your street,
understand.
all
Yeah, I
those, the
understand
houses
what it is
are
now.
in
Yeah,
line.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So,
Yep. So we can totally do that. We'll create a definition for that, and of course, review with all of you when we get the chance to do that. And okay, cool.
Okay.
I did find that section, Steve. Page 10. There's a listing of all the list of zoning districts, section 1.30. There's a table 1.10 list of zoning districts. So that's where it defines LFOD, but then it defines it as Lake Overlay District. kind of.
Yep, I see it right there. Cool.
Right, so let's just consistent add front, lakefront.
Yep.
All right, noted.
Okay. So moving on to section 3.30.1, accessory buildings definition changes regarding coverage.
So with this section, all we're simply suggesting is keeping all of the lakefront overlay district stuff together. That section, we've incorporated it into section 4.80, special provisions for the lakefront overlay district. So under the accessory buildings section, instead of having that in two different spots, we figured just have it say refer to section 4.80F, and you'll have all of the lakefront stuff together.
Sounds good to me. Are we okay with the proposed language?
There was some question that Lori was supposed to ask Rick, because Rick had some issues with some of this language.
I'm not super familiar with the conversations that Lori has had with Rick.
Okay, because I remember she said that she didn't want to do anything until because Rick had some.
Oh, actually, I think that's more in reference to coverage, lot coverage, and building. So, yeah, and we're currently working on those right now. So,
Okay,
B, C, and D on the agenda. We are currently not ready to have the discussion on those because
Okay.
that's where we had the conversation with Rick.
okay. I'm just,
Okay, any other comments on this particular item?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. What else? We have, so B, C, and D. We covered here.
yeah,
I think that's it. huh?
that's it.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Mr. Chair.
Yes. Oh, yes, sir.
This isn't a public hearing, so this isn't necessarily a time for public input.
Right.
Maybe it could be
Can we add an agenda item
other
to,
business.
in other business to discuss? I assume we're going to discuss SPR 1966.
Yes, sir.
How does that sound?
Second?
I make a motion to, under item 13, to have an informal discussion about SPR 1966
Second.
Under other business.
under other business.
Thank you.
Which is
All in-
next.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much for hearing me again. We just went out in the hallway and discussed it, and we came to the conclusion that the council is correct in your recommendation. So we asked that, I know you continued our previous discussion, but if you would be kind enough to, or if you choose to, if you want to open it up again, we're in agreement that we'll move the two containers 20 feet forward to be compliant, and then you can just approve it as it was recommended.
And the screening?
Well, the screening we have already, we're just waiting for it to grow.
Okay, that's,
And we'll replace the ones that are,
sure.
yes.
I don't know if that's something we can do at this point.
Well,
I,
it was on the agenda.
right.
We tabled
we
it, we
tabled it.
tabled it to the next meeting.
That-
I would think you can take it off the table anytime you want, I think. Right? I don't know.
We can rescind the vote, the motion to table.
Whoever made the motion needs to rescind it.
I'm just making sure that we're doing this.
I understand.
the
I
legal
just thought
way.
it'd be easier for the commission, so you wouldn't have to go through it again, and we think that your recommendation is correct.
I think he's checking.
Yeah, he's checking.
He's checking. Hold on.
Okay,
If we can do it, we will. If we can't,
thank you.
I don't know where you're finding it.
Looks like Robert's rules just came out.
It did. Thing is, I don't know where to. Let's go to tabling.
Robert, would you need him?
Take from the table, 132.
Oh, he's got the book.
He's got a
Got
book.
the Bible.
There's a book.
It's a planning and zoning 911.
Right.
Yeah, right.
More like 912.
Yeah.
Consideration of a main motion which lies on.
So after having a brief discussion with staff, that is something that you have the ability to do, or we believe you have the ability to do too, because
Okay.
it's within the same meeting. Motion to untable and then resume.
Okay, so I'm going to read the paragraph from Robert's rules. It says, if it is desired to resume consideration of a main motion which lies on the table, it can be proposed by means of the motion to take from the table, that the motion then becomes pending again.
okay.
Okay, so we need a motion to
I
take it from the table.
rescind my motion to table SPR 1966.
Second.
Okay, can we have roll call on that?
We have to, do we rescind the table or do we just take it off the table? I thought we were taking it off the table. We're not
We should be
reversing.
taking it off the
All right,
table.
all right,
According to
I-
Robert's rule, you're right.
I make a motion to take SPR 1966, 809 Enfield Street off the table.
Second.
All right.
Okay, roll call, please.
Okay, Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Linda DeGrace, 4. Joe Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch.
4.
Walter Griselle.
4.
Rob Anderson.
4.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we are back on SPR
So now we just gotta do
66.
The original motion for that.
Go back to the original motion.
Okay. Make a
The
motion.
extra,
I got it right here.
you got,
I got it. Motion to approve SPR 1966, 809 Enfield Street, application for modification of PH 3084 for 2 temporary storage containers. GJWSJ LLC, applicant owner, map 29, lot 72, BG zone, with 25 conditions.
23. Two of them are crossed off.
All right,
They were crossed
right.
off.
I really wish you guys wouldn't do that, because it really does screw up the numbering. So if you just would renumber, it'd be easier. I know it's easier for you guys to just line through, but it's confusing for when you're reading it. So 23, and with 2 specific conditions. Number 7 is final plan shall include screening of storage containers from 8 Park Avenue. And number 8, final plan shall remove the storage containers from the rear yard setback.
Second.
okay, can I have roll call? Oh,
Discussion.
discussion, yes.
We don't want to remove 7, we don't want to remove 8.
No,
8's
no.
Not removing
It
it.
says
removing
shall
either one.
remove the storage containers from the rear setback. They're going to have to move them forward.
Both 7 and 8 stay in.
Yes.
I think we're talking about 22 and 23 that have strike-throughs.
Yes.
Is that, that's,
Yeah, that might have,
right, I think that's what, when we talked about
Confusion on that.
strike-through.
Right,
yeah, we're
22
not
and-
striking those.
right. Okay, all right. You okay with that? Yep. All right.
Okay, roll call, please.
Ken Helinski,
4.
Christian D'Antonio.
4.
Linda DeGray, 4. Joe Muley,
4.
Terrence Lynch,
4.
Walter Purcell,
4.
Rob Anderson.
4.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
you're all set.
Thank you very much for reconsidering. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your
Value the
compliance.
time of the council. I didn't want to have to come back and tell you, yes, we're going to do that when we've decided to do that.
All right.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item, Commissioners' correspondence. Do we have any Commissioners' correspondence? Yes, Walter.
I don't know if this is where I bring it up. Hazard Ave, where on the way to Summers, there was the old, was it Town and Country? The old garage there that went out of business?
Oh, yeah.
No, beyond
Country.
it.
Tire
Almost-
Country.
Tire Country, yes. Their sign is leaning towards the street.
That's a C-click fix.
And I don't know if that's something, I mean, it's abandoned, they're
It's
empty,
abandoned.
it's gone.
C-click fix.
All right, I will do
what?
that.
C-click fix.
I just don't want it to fall in
And
the
it
road.
goes on the clock. So then the town has to adjust
Right.
it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioners?
Just real quick.
Yep.
I will not be here at the next meeting.
Okay.
There's graduation at Enfield High, and I'll be there.
Sounds good.
Right. It's like in 2 weeks. Holy cow.
Commissioner Anderson, if I may just point out, because of that conflict of schedule, the next meeting is actually not on a Thursday, it's on Wednesday, June 10th. I don't know if that changes
be
things.
That's why we had the confusion earlier between the 10th and the 11th.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next item, Director of Planning report. Anything, Steve?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Authorization for administrative approvals. Applications to be received. You had one, I think.
Yep, we have one application to be received, PH 3150, 141 Hazard Ave, application for a special use permit for a child care center. Jenny Rinaldi, applicant. Harshi Panchal Investments, LLC, owner. Map 65, Lot 2, BP Zone.
Okay.
What's the address?
141.
141 Hazard Ave.
Okay. Opportunities, unresolved issues.
None?
Executive session, none.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Hey.
Aye.
All right.